Today, we talk about the Blazers' breakout rookie, Shaedon Sharpe. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another player review brought to you by BetOnline. Use the promo code BELIEVE, B-L-E-A-V, for a 50% reward bonus over at betonline.ag. You can get in on the NBA playoff action and any other sports with live betting, parlays, and all sorts of fun stuff. Thank you to them for sponsoring this video. Now, let's talk about Shaedon Sharpe, who is still 19 years old, doesn't turn 20 until late May, and expectations weren't super high for the rookie after he skipped college and didn't have much high-level game tape. Here's what I said about Sharpe before the season. And the buzzword and the biggest storyline that I have for Shaedon Sharpe this year is flashes, because I think he will show flashes, but I don't think he will be consistent, and I don't know if he's going to be able to play right away. That's what happens when you get a guy with a ton of natural talent, but who's missed out on some repetitions, as he didn't play in college and then missed out on summer league. It's hard to know what to expect from a guy like that, so the expectations are low for me, but given his natural talent, I wouldn't be surprised if he shows flashes of being a future star. And with Damian Lillard mentoring him, who I think is the perfect mentor for him, I think you'll see him improve pretty drastically throughout the season. Now, as far as his offensive game, I think that it'll take him some time to get acclimated to the speed and the pace of the NBA game. He's a very, very good athlete, but I don't think his first step is good at an NBA level yet. That is something you can develop, and I expect him to, and I think he will develop a better first step in the next couple of years. But right now, just given what I've seen from him, I don't expect him to be a guy that's blowing by guys or really shaking guys off too much with his ball handling ability. That's why I think he might struggle from the jump as a scorer, but he still has the natural talent, athleticism, and feel long term that if he struggles, it's not going to discourage me. You can work on ball handling, you can work on your first step. That's just the areas that he needs to improve upon in order to kind of tie together the rest of his NBA game. But then also, it's going to take some time for him to read the game at that speed, because it's the NBA. It's the best players in the world. He didn't even get that in college, so he's a little bit behind the curve in that regard. That's why I don't really have expectations. But the wildly optimistic expectations come in when you just look at his ability to knock down mid-range shots. I'm curious to see what he's going to be as a three-point shooter. And if he's playing with a bench lineup, he should get some touches and some opportunities to score. You have some good defensive pieces on there that can play make and kind of set him up. And I think that early on, he will get buckets by spotting up and actually playing off the ball, by being a cutter, by running in transition, and by hitting catch and shoot threes. He doesn't have to force anything with the amount of playmakers and shot creators that are on this roster, and that's what I'll be looking for this season, just how much he tries to force the type of game he's played before the NBA, and how much he just tries to adapt to just being another guy on a roster for now, and being a role player on the offensive end. Now let's see how he fared. On the season, Sharpe averaged barely below 10 points per game, had 3 rebounds and 1.2 assists in 22 minutes. He was also healthy. After an injury in Summer League, he played in 80 regular season games for the Blazers this year. In terms of goals, I had no idea what goals to set before the season. With no college stuff to go off of, it was really hard to set these goals, and I thought maybe I was being too optimistic. But as we take a look at things, I gave him a goal of 15 points per 36 minutes, and he beat that, averaging 16. I also had the goal of 4 rebounds per 36, and he beat that with 4.8. I wanted to see him get 2.5 assists, and that's one goal he didn't get with only 1.9. But I also had a goal of him getting more assists than turnovers, and he achieved that. I thought he was going to be a little bit more turnover prone this year, but also maybe make plays a little bit more. But his assist numbers were very low for the majority of the season, but that changed later on, and we'll talk about that. First, let's take a look at his efficiency. Sharpe had a pretty efficient year. I wasn't expecting him to be this efficient. A true shooting percentage of almost 57% is pretty average, but that's good for somebody with his lack of experience at 19 years old. I had a goal of 46% on 2-point shots for him, and he blew that goal out of the water, shooting almost 56%. I also had the goal of him shooting 34% from 3, and he came out of the gate shooting the ball well. He was shooting above 40% after his first month as a professional, and although it didn't stay there, he still ended up passing that goal, shooting 36%. Let's take a look at the positives. The first positive was obviously his athleticism this year. Before the draft, it was rumored that he had a 49-inch vertical, and while I think that might be a little bit exaggerated, his athleticism was still game-changing on the NBA level, and he could get a lot done simply because he can jump out of the gym. I was also really impressed as to how explosive he is with different footwork and in different situations. And he's not just an athletic guy, he's also a functional athlete, which is very important. The second positive was his three-point shooting this year. I had questions whether he'd be a good three-point shooter or not. He had some good moments shooting the ball in high school and on the international scene, EYBL, etc. But it's always hard to project guys without any college tape in terms of how they'll shoot in the NBA going to a much deeper three-point line than they played with in high school. And Sharpe was fine. He knocked down shots off the dribble, shot a couple deep threes this season and knocked them down. One against the Clippers that was impressive. Started shooting threes off the pick and roll late in the season, and he shot a really good percentage on catch and shoot threes. Sharpe looks like a guy that'll be able to shoot threes off the catch and off the dribble in a bunch of different situations, and that is a positive for sure. The third positive was his finishing. Sharpe shot over 70% at the rim, due in part to that athleticism that he has. But during the season, he also showcased some creativity, being able to hang in the air and adjust with some double clutches, or being able to explode into the shot blocker's body to neutralize them and finish through them. And late in the season, these flashes became a bit more regular, and it's why Sharpe shot a good percentage from 2. I also like the creation upside that he showed late in the season. At the start of the season, Sharpe really struggled beating guys off the dribble, handling the ball, playing against physicality, etc. But late in the season, we saw massive improvements in that regard, and it's why he went on such a late season tear where he averaged over 20 points per game when the Blazers started tanking. He showed all the potential that he has when people talk about him as a high ceiling prospect, with a lot of the creation moments that he had late in the season. He projects as a guy that shouldn't be limited as an offensive player in any way. The only question mark I had about him was his ball handling coming into the season and his first step, but seeing the improvements in that late in the season has me not worried whatsoever about Shaedon Sharpe long term, and has me extremely excited for his future. The fifth and final positive was his passing flashes that he showed late in the season as well. Late in the season, he had a couple quotes talking about how he was trying to get his teammates involved, improve at the pocket pass on pick and rolls, etc. And we saw his game take a massive leap in terms of his passing, but also in terms of him reading the second level of defenses. He was a guy early in the season that would just try and beat his initial defender, but would really struggle reading the help guy rotating over and had some really bad moments because of it. Late in the season, he was reading that guy extremely well and making the right pass accordingly. And while I don't see Sharpe ever being the main facilitator for an offense, for a guy with his scoring potential, it was nice for him to show that he could potentially be a secondary playmaker, a guy that maybe at some point could average 4 or 5 assists per game and at least get his teammates involved and make teams pay for trying to load up on his drives. There were some negatives with Sharpe. Of course there was. He's a 19-year-old rookie, but these negatives are all things that he could easily improve upon. The first negative was his defensive motor. I thought Sharpe kind of quit on a lot of defensive plays. This may be due to him not trying to pick up fouls, or him just not having confidence in himself, being able to get the job done in certain situations on defense, but there was multiple times where his defender would have a little bit of a step on him, and with Sharpe's athleticism, I thought maybe he could block a shot or at least make it tough, and he wouldn't jump and he wouldn't even raise his hands. He kind of put his hands down by his side and let the offensive player go up. There was times where he was a little bit lazy off the ball, and this is to be expected from somebody who's 19. I hope that Sharpe wants to become a good defender because he has all the physical tools necessary to get that done, in my opinion. However, I think the biggest negative was just some of the moments where it looked like he wasn't particularly interested in playing defense, and I hope that Sharpe can improve his effort level on the defensive end and improve his defensive motor. Schroeder. The second negative, and this could have something to do with some of his defensive struggles this year, is his strength. I still think he needs to get a little bit stronger, and that will help him withstand contact when he's trying to drive on offense. It'll help him deal with more physical defenders, but then on the defensive end, it'll help him absorb contact with his chest better without looking like he's fouling. So strength is a big deal for him, being able to get his upper body a little bit stronger. He looks like a guy that can put on some muscle. I think it would help him on both sides of the floor. The third negative was his mid-range shooting. Sharpe was not efficient from the mid-range. From 3 feet out to the three-point line, he struggled. He has a nice mid-range bag, if you want to say it like that. He has some nice moves from the mid-range in which he's able to get shots up, but he wasn't efficient enough on them, and some of them just might be too tough for him to regularly shoot. We'll have to wait and see on that, but mid-range is definitely something for him to develop. When he's able to get his balance and have space, he's actually pretty solid from that range, but he needs to get to those situations more if he's going to shoot the amount of mid-range shots he did this season. And then the fourth negative was his free throw shooting at only 71%. I definitely want to see Sharpe improve that free throw percentage. He improved it as the season went on. He was actually below 70% for a while, but if he's going to be a star level scoring guard, a big part of that is being able to get to the free throw line and then being able to knock down free throws once you're there. So Sharpe improving getting to the line as well as improving his free throw percentage to hopefully around 80% would be something nice to see going forward. In terms of the future for Sharpe, there is a chance that he's not on the Blazers next season. Normally a prospect like this would be a shoo-in to return to their team, but with Portland being in position to make a big splash and Damian Lillard wanting to win now, I can't rule out Shaedon Sharpe getting traded. However, I don't think he'd be traded in any package outside of something for a legitimate star. We're talking a Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo type player. There is a chance that maybe he could be included in a deal for a Pascal Siakam level player, but I have a hard time seeing that happening. Sharpe will be making approximately $7 million next year. His salary amount doesn't really matter too much. And there is some expectations that he will start for the Blazers next year. Now, this is tough if Anthony Simons is still on the team, as I don't know if you can play Dame, Ant, and Sharpe in the starting lineup together and get the job done defensively. The Blazers struggled once again defensively this year with Josh Hart, who's a good defensive player starting at the 3. So substituting Hart out and Sharpe in, it gives you more shooting, more offensive firepower, but the defensive side of the ball would be a major area of struggle. So if Anthony Simons gets traded and Sharpe remains in Portland, I would highly expect Sharpe to have that starting shooting guard role open up for him, but his role next season on the Blazers depends on this upcoming offseason. In terms of what he should work on, he should continue to work on his ball handling. I still think there's a lot of area for improvement there, and also continue to work on his three-point shot, becoming maybe a little bit more consistent of a three-point shooter and just dialing that shot in, because next season, even if he's starting, he's going to be playing next to some higher caliber players most likely, so being able to be an off-ball threat in terms of a cutter, lob target, and a high volume, high efficiency three-point shooter will help him fit into those lineups. And then the defensive side of the ball is extremely important for him. If he can become a solid to good defensive player, it raises Portland's stock a ton. Portland needs as many good defenders as possible. They need to fix that side of the ball. They have no worries offensively with Damian Lillard, Shaedon Sharpe, Anthony Simons if he stays, Jeremy Grant. That won't be an issue. It's just, can the defense get good enough for Portland to be competitive and get back to being a playoff team? Shaedon Sharpe developing on that end would help address that. In terms of Sharpe's grade this season, I give him an A. He absolutely exceeded expectations. Expectations weren't high for him going into his first NBA season after not playing a lick of college ball. And at 19 years old, normally players don't have this good of rookie seasons. He was looked at as a high-risk, high-reward prospect. Now I don't think there's really much risk. You know that he can play on the NBA level, and now he's just a high-reward guy, and he should develop into a star. If he was a little better defensively, I would have given him an A+, but regardless, he was absolutely phenomenal this year. With that being said, that wraps up this player review. I have a playlist linked in the description box below for player reviews, so check that out if you want to. Thank you to BetOnline for sponsoring this video. Remember the promo code BELIEVE for 50% rewards, and I'm out of here. I'll catch you next time. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.